The found footage film Backrooms, a sensation at home and abroad, has finally hit the screens, and this time it has a complete definition. Backrooms is a multi-layered copy of the real world. With each copy, some environmental information is lost until everything becomes completely distorted. It doesn't just copy static objects, but it can also replicate humans. These copied humans also become deformed and terrifying. Early in the story, a researcher exploring the backroom suddenly finds himself being followed. He followed the wires on the ground back to the monitoring room in the backrooms. Overwhelmed by fear, his voice began to tremble. He used his radio to call for support, but no one answered. Unwilling to wait for death, he stepped out of the monitoring room. But as he turned, he saw the monster right behind him. The researcher hurried, but walked straight into a dead end. As he tried to turn back, the monster caught and grabbed him. After a terrifying scream, the tape ended. The people watching the tape were a group of technicians in white coats. Clark, the protagonist, suffered childhood family trauma, making it hard for him to integrate into adult life. Not long before, his wife had kicked him out. Mary is his psychologist. To heal Clark's trauma, she often uses role-playing. She brings him back to painful scenes, lets him relive the entire process, then slowly guides him positively. Clark often dressed as a captain to advertise his furniture store. He also hired a couple as assistants. After being kicked out, Clark could only temporarily stay at his furniture store. Since moving to the new rental, he noticed his electric bill was much higher than his actual usage. Sometimes the power would suddenly cut out. Even while watching TV, the screen would suddenly change channels. The screen showed an empty room with warm yellow lights and a power cord stretching out the door. Then, the TV lost power. Clark went to the basement to check the breaker but saw light shining from the wall. He approached to check, planning to put his hand on the wall to listen for movement behind it. Unexpectedly, his hand passed through the wall and his whole body fell into another space. The vast space was filled with furniture. Everything happened too fast. Clark couldn't understand what was happening, so he tried passing through the wall again. After confirming this spot truly held an invisible door, Clark began exploring the space within. He picked up a piece of furniture, discovering they all had distorted, irregular shapes. Continuing deeper inside, Clark was drawn by a sound. Following the sound to its source, he saw a human-shaped standee with a sound emitter attached. It continuously broadcast the same message in many languages. Whoever you are, may you find peace. We come with good intentions, bringing peace among the stars. A surveillance camera was also installed in the room behind the standee. These wires connected directly to his furniture store. No wonder his electric bill was unusually high. Clark scanned the room, finding a small door in the corner. Behind the door was a passageway with a backpack. Papers in the backpack showed its owner belonged to the ASIN organization, code Cleo Kibar. Clark guessed there must be others in this space. That person was likely at the other end of the passage. But when he went through the tunnel, it was completely empty. Only a few pairs of shoes and chairs were stuck beneath the floor. As Clark closely examined the holes on the ground, the human-shaped standee was violently thrown to the ground. Terrified, Clark turned and ran. A small door appeared on a trapezoidal wall. He struggled to climb up and squeezed through the one-person door to escape. He then returned to the initial space, bringing a chair back to the basement. But ASIN's surveillance system recorded all his recent actions. Clark went to his psychologist Mary and told her everything he experienced. He also pulled out a partial map of the backroom structure he'd drawn. Since Clark had an alcohol addiction, Mary thought it was a hallucination from too much drinking. Hearing Mary's doubt, Clark angrily stood and left. He vowed to bring her proof next time. Clark asked his two assistants to help record scenes in the backrooms as evidence. He taped around the doorway to mark its location. When Clark passed through the wall, the other two screamed in disbelief. Following Clark's instructions, they also passed through that door. This time, Clark took a different path. He found a slope leading deep underground and sent Bobby, the younger and stronger one, to check it first. They tied a rope around Bobby, the other end to a bed. Keith sat on it for weight. This slope was unusually long, estimated at 50 meters. At the bottom of the slope, Bobby saw clothes scattered, some covered in blood. As Bobby was about to go deeper, a giant silhouette appeared in the room ahead under flickering lights. No, 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 pull me up now. As Bobby was about to untie the rope, the part on the slope was suddenly yanked down with extreme force. Keith and Clark rushed to hold Bobby, preventing him from being pulled back down the slope. But compared to the strength below, They were powerless. Despite their best efforts, Bobby was still pulled back down the slope. The bed was dragged along, pulling both Keith and Clark down. The camera's last image of Bobby showed him dragged by the monster through a horizontal door into another room. Bobby's fresh bloodstains remained on the floor. Keith couldn't open the door, so she ran into the nearby darkness to search for Bobby. Clark escaped through a crack in the wall. The next path was completely unfamiliar. Clark heard footsteps close behind, opened a random door, and rushed inside. But this room was pitch black. Only a Christmas tree in the center glowed. Behind the tree, someone seemed to be standing. A human replica stepped towards him with a distorted, grotesque posture. Terrified, Clark ran into a room with a pool. Here, he heard Keith's voice. From her voice, it seemed Keith had been captured by the monster. She was right behind this wall. Keith said a glass panel was in front of her, so she could see Clark. But Clark only saw a wall. He couldn't see anything behind it. Just then, the camera he placed on the table was suddenly picked up. Not long after, Mary was woken by her phone ringing. It was Clark calling. Hearing his words, Mary thought Clark was suicidal. But she immediately drove to his furniture store. In the basement, Mary saw the door Clark had marked, looking at the structural diagram on the blackboard. She remembered Clark telling her he had entered another space. Mary walked to the marked door and saw a fly circling, but suddenly it hit the wall and vanished. Mary's eyes widened in fear. She carefully touched the wall and found her hand could pass into another space. After a moment's thought, Mary stepped through the door. The furniture inside had been rearranged. Mary walked through each hallway and room, reaching a dead end with a drawing on the wall. She approached the drawing, trying to understand its meaning. But when she turned, Mary saw Clark peeking from the corner. Both of them simultaneously realized something was approaching them. Clark stepped towards Mary, pushing her behind him, but while Mary was unprepared, Clark suddenly strangled her. Not long after, Mary suffocated and passed out. When she woke up, she found herself tied. There were 5 people in the room, her, Clark, and 3 replicas. These Backrooms replicas were all deformed beyond recognition. A man, a woman, and a disabled person in a wheelchair. These replicas felt no pain and didn't bleed. Clark stabbed the male replica's neck, but it had no reaction. Not only that, these replicas could also be eaten. Clark ripped off the male replica's shirt, then tore open its stomach. The replica's body was soft like cotton candy. According to Clark, it tasted very delicious. When opening the fridge for a drink, Mary found Keith's severed head inside. Being kicked out by his wife always weighed heavily on Clark, becoming his obsession. He cut off a replica's head, put it on Mary, forcing her to play his wife, and curse him so he could vent his anger. Mary's honest words slowly sobered Clark. When in trouble, he only complained, never seeking a proper solution. For Clark, real-world life was too exhausting. Only in the Backrooms did he feel free. Here, there's no rent, no utility bills, and no complex relationships to handle. For him, this place was like paradise. Sobering up, Clark untied Mary and whispered an apology. But then, the female replica sensed danger running to the room's dark corner. But it was a dead end. It repeatedly slammed into the wall, bouncing back again and again. Meanwhile, the monster entered the small room. It was a giant pirate, 4 meters tall. When the view shifted, everyone clearly saw the monster was Clark's replica. From what Clark said, they seemed to have lived together quite amicably. But for unknown reasons, the monster now saw him as an enemy, killing him instantly. As the monster fought Clark, Mary used the chance to flee along the wall. She crossed the sofa-filled room, entering the narrow corridor next door. From a window at the corridor's end, Mary climbed into another space. Looking down, below seemed like a bottomless abyss. This meant the Backrooms had countless stacked layers. The only exit was a door located at the top of a staircase. Mary carefully climbed the stairs and opened the door. She was almost pulled down by the door. After crawling through, Mary thought she returned to the furniture store's basement. But looking around, she discovered there was no tape-marked door on the wall. The ground floor exit was also blocked by a wall. Clearly, Mary was still in the Backrooms. This was just a replica of the furniture store. In the room's center, a human standee kept repeating a familiar phrase. "Whoever you are, may you be safe. We come with good intentions, bringing peace among the stars." Just then, the monster also caught up. Mary grabbed a coat hanger to defend herself, wary and backing away. She hit the pirate's wooden leg with all her might, making it fall. Mary turned to flee, but hit the standee, accidentally triggering a mechanism. Several gas canisters nearby began to spray toxic gas. Amidst the chaos, Mary saw electrical wires on the ground, all leading to one place. She guessed it was the exit, so she quickly got up and ran towards it. Ahead was a narrow passage, just wide enough for one person to squeeze through. The monster, coincidentally, was blocked outside. Mary reached the end of the narrow path, but was gassed by a person in yellow. She was then taken to a giant laboratory. Pressed her. Here, alongside staff in protective suits, were scientists in white lab coats. After resting, Mary slowly regained her strength. She was escorted to the interrogation room. On the way, behind a corridor door, Mary saw countless human standees placed inside. A researcher named Finn came to ask her questions. His company, Asin, previously manufactured Murray machines, but now they investigate and analyze the backrooms. They needed Mary to describe everything she saw. No one knew if Mary could return to her old life after this. The scariest part of the backrooms wasn't monsters, but it trapping Clark in his trauma, the repetitive, empty, and inescapable rooms. Like ghosts of his childhood and failed life he couldn't escape, the monster was the embodiment of his suppressed anger. Anger, low self-esteem, and habit of avoiding responsibility. The more Clark hid in the backrooms, the more his inner darkness consumed him. The film uses horror as a facade to tell a tragic story. What truly traps people is often not a physical space, the self they dare not face.